the cynicism about politics, and that's why we had 150,000 people out on the streets last week.
The next speaking slot is shared by Deputies Martin Hayden and Michael Creed. Deputy Hayden, 10 minutes.
I'd like to take up on just on a point that's been raised by the previous speaker about the fairness of the budget, and say that this budget, and I very much welcome the opportunity to speak here in the Finance Bill, but this budget the budget measures here further improve the progressiveness of our income tax and USC system. They absolutely do. The result in the top 1% of earners now paying 21% of all income tax in USC. And while the bottom 76% of earners pay just 20% of all of our income tax in USC, that's more progressive to me now, and absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. I would also like to raise the issue around the agricultural measures. There was an awful lot of positive agricultural measures in this, and as chairman of Fine Gael's Internal Agricultural Committee, I would very much like to commend Minister Noonan, department officials, and working in conjunction with Department of Agriculture officials on coming up with some very progressive changes there that would really help areas around land mobility and access of young farmers through long-term leasing and other measures. I very much welcome the retention of 90% agricultural relief for active farmers and those not active but who lease out their land for 6 years or more. However, there's a couple of caveats with that. I do think we need to extend out the date to 2016 to give time for those who are affected by the changes here. Also, the whole definition of the active farmer is a very serious issue. The requirement of 50% of working time to be spent farming is ungovernable, it's impossible to prove, and it's just not fair. So I would say, part-time farming has become a very integral part of the agricultural industry now, largely due to the fact that our commodity prices are so low and our farmers need to go off farm to get income. That doesn't mean they're necessarily bad farmers, and it doesn't mean that they're not making a very valuable contribution to our agricultural sector. A part-time farmer could be very efficient, could be productive, and does play an important role in the industry, but could also be holding down a 40-hour-a-week job. Some part-time farmers have, in many respects, a model where they use a lot of contractors, and that doesn't mean that because they use a contractor to plough, till and sow, and the neighbour next door does it himself, means that that farmer is any less a farmer or makes any less of a contribution to our industry. So Irish agriculture greatly needs part-time farmers. The alternative is we look at ranch farmers or land abandonment. So I would ask for consideration of the IFA proposals, where, in relation to the definition of an active farmer, that someone who is farming and files the returns under Schedule D. You will also find, Minister, that this week the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Agriculture has agreed, all-party committee that is, has agreed to write to Minister Noonan and to highlight its concerns also. There's a possibility of a couple of options here, I see. The use of the green cert or a percentage of the working week, as not every older farmer may have the green cert, but many of the newer ones do. Long-term leasing is more preferable for younger farmers who need to plan, want to make a career and lifetime in agriculture but don't have the access to the land. We need to get away from the Conacre system. There's no doubt about that. We do have the statistic here that in Ireland a farm is sold once every 400 years. In France, a similar field is sold about once every 80 years. We don't have good land mobility. However, we must ensure that such measures do not penalise the children of farmers who wish to inherit a family farm with the possibility of farming it into the future. So that's a very key point on that one. In relation to the consanguinity relief to 2017, that has the same issue regarding the definition of the active farmer, and the same change needs to apply. There needs to be some movement in that. It's unworkable as I see it, and ungovernable as well. Because you can't have that situation where the farmer that has the off-farm job at 40 hours a week then has to try and prove in some way that they're doing 40 hours a week on the farm. I don't think it's workable, and it penalises the person you're not trying to get. Regarding the consanguinity as well, like this is an incentive to encourage earlier lifetime transfers of farms, and the issue with this also is the immediacy of the proposed implementation of the 1st of January 2015. the incentive of lifetime transfer may be lost if we don't give a little bit more time there. I think there should be a lead-in period for this relief that would apply to all transfers, similar to the lead-in period before the application of the CGT retirement relief. And thereafter, continuity relief would apply where the transferor disposes of or transfers the asset up to the point where they reach the pension age, because that's the point where you have farmers in their early 60s, the children maybe are getting to a point where they're ready to take over the farm. The time to have that discussion is, you know, Daddy, next year you're getting your pension and you'll have that income, and maybe now is the time to consider that. If you let that time pass on, I think it would encourage, rather than being at 65, moving to 66 and being in line with the pension age would be helpful. Regarding the change of income tax and USC to support employment and job creation, you know, I very much welcome the changes that come in to support employment and job creation, which is our #1 goal. But there has been some concern raised in recent weeks at the taxation levels of the self-employed. And I accept the increase in the USC rate to 11% for those over 100,000, that this was to counteract the reduced marginal tax rate. However, I think we need a full review of the entire taxation system that applies to self-employed individuals. Even at significantly lower income levels, entrepreneurs starting out in business, I think we could improve how the tax system applies to them compared to employees, and even small changes would help to assist those who have ideas, and we want to encourage startups because they're obviously key, and the number of measures that are there, I do think an overall review of the self-employed taxation system is warranted. Around the areas of herbal teas, it was something that I had been lobbied on. I had met and sat down with the Irish Association of Health Stores, and you know, I'm delighted that there's been clarification that herbal teas and fruit infusions are included in the definition of unprepared teas and therefore come in under the 0 rate of VAT. I think this is a positive move, and it'll be a relief to the 101 members of that association and the 400 employees all around the country. You know, they were keen that the 0% or the 0 rate would be confirmed for a number of health supplements that maintain, protect and enhance health. So I'll continue to work with them and look to highlight the case of other enhancing products that there may be still a question mark over in relation to that. The vintners, I met with a number of Vintners Association members in South Kildare in the run-up to the budget, and we all know in this House how much pressure, particularly rural pubs, but small pubs are under at present. And you know, they had a campaign around the excise, and I very much welcome that excise duty was not increased. But I think in the longer term, we do need to protect these pubs and this trade that does provide an important social outlet and provide very important employment around the country. And I think looking at excise duty into future years is very important, but also to look at the issue of below-cost sale of drink that I know is on the radar, Minister, by the multiples. This is an area we do need to tackle. I fundamentally believe we are better people taking a drink in a regulated environment of a pub than pouring their own measures at home, which is very much the change in trend that we've come to. So we don't want to lose the pub out of rural Ireland. It has a very important role to play. Around the area of the Employment and Investment Incentive Scheme, I'd spoken to a number of companies and financial advisors who were seeking an extension of the minimum holding period for the EII scheme from 3 years to 5 years. And some from specific growing industries such as the Irish whisky and distilling sector, where a long holding period is a necessity. The extension to 4 years is definitely to be welcomed, while not fully what they were looking for. But I think we need to continue to encourage industries and sectors that are recognised as world leaders. And I admire the growth in the whisky distilling area, which is a proven export product that we are recognised in and rewarded for. And it's a major help in our attempts to meet, and we will well surpass the Food Harvest 2020 targets of hitting €12 billion of exports of our food and drink product. Irish whisky has massive growth potential and needs to be supported and continue to be supported as it has been. We have the home renovation scheme as well, and the extension of the home renovation scheme to rental properties whose owners are liable to income tax is welcome, and it shows the positive nature and the impact of the scheme to date. Many landlords are struggling to manage increasing costs and additional charges on top of the hefty mortgages, so improvements to property is down the list of priorities. However, given the shortage quality and suitable accommodation, we do need to incentivise landlords where possible to keep their rental properties up to an appropriate standard. So I very much would hope that the officials and the ministers will take on board the points I've raised here today of concern, but very much commend the bill. Thank you.
I'll call Deputy Michael Creed.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and I welcome the opportunity